Hi, everybody. Today we have Elizabeth Hobson of Justice of Men and Boys and the Women Who Love Them, and Greta Aurora together in the flesh over in the UK side, not over here because I'm all the way in Minnesota. How you guys doing?
Great.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
That's good. How did you two meet, and how did you come to arrange what you got going on right now, the Q&A yesterday and all?
Following each other on Twitter for a while, actually. But I first got in touch with Elizabeth a few months ago, maybe 3-4 months ago.
Yeah, somebody kind of had messaged me and said, "Have you seen this girl?" And I was like, "No." And then I looked on Twitter and I was like, "Oh, I'm following her." But I kind of looked at some of her content and was like, "This is really interesting." And so I approached you in like a private message on Facebook, I think. And we just got talking and enjoyed each other's, the cut of each other's jib. And so decided to bring the conversation into the real world and onto the internet. So I invited Greta around. She arrived at 6 p.m. and I've just been working her like a dog, like interviews, podcasts, live streams.
Not exactly a vacation then. All right, so I know I've asked some of this in the chat yesterday, but I guess I'm going to do it again. So Greta, what are your musical influences, and what kind of stuff do you listen to nowadays?
So, those of you who don't know, I'm a poet and spoken word performer. I also sing and write songs, but in recent years I've been focusing on poetry, and my main influences are psychedelic and progressive rock, mostly from the late 60s, early 70s. And I also love jazz, but my stuff is quite dark and alternative, although I work with a jazz guitarist, so there's that influence too. And nowadays, I try to keep an open mind, but I mostly listen to rock and metal, a lot of 70s stuff, and also some more recent, like Metallica, Megadeth. I'm not into very extremely heavy metal, but I actually like all music that has musical instruments in it. I'm not a fan of electronic music.
I understand. Yeah. Do you have anything in common between the two of you when it comes to music, or any shared interests?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my kind of musical taste is centered around 1970s rock, and then in terms of genre and kind of decades, I move out a little bit, but that is my focus. But I mean, after we streamed last night, we put YouTube on, and Greta was like, "Okay, we're gonna fix this King Crimson thing," because I couldn't get King Crimson, and she put on Prozac Blues, and it blew my tiny mind. So that's a new treasure for me.
Right. Yeah. The first time I heard Prozac Blues is like, what are you doing? but it's grown on me since. So I actually like all eras of King Crimson. Some people need to know that it's not all 21st Century Schizoid Man. There's like a whole world of King Crimson that's brilliant. Like when I saw King Crimson in Minneapolis, I was not dead smack close to the stage, but there were some like really old guys that were like probably fans from the very beginning. They were kind of like VIP positions, like a bunch of old guys at the very front, right? And King Crimson, they did some of the old stuff too, but then they did some of their more recent heavy metal stuff and just like slamming the old people's faces with 3 drums and everything. So that was just pretty funny to see.
Yeah, I've seen them live in recent years a few times, and the drummers are incredible. The way they work together, it's unreal.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. All right, so you guys are both in the upcoming ICMI. Would both of you like to hint at what you'd like to talk about? Tease the audience, as it were.
You want to start?
Yeah, so my video is about debunking feminist myths around misogyny and rape culture. And there are 10 myths I talk about. And I recorded my video over a month ago, so I'm not going to tell you what those are. But in the first half of the video, I talk a lot about one of my main interests, which is the power of feminine beauty and female sexuality. And that's kind of my starting point.
Elizabeth?
Mine is not entirely dissimilar, actually. What a coincidence. Mine's called The Power of Stories, and I am arguing that the reason that feminism has been so successful and influential is because they've captured the public imagination with these horrible narratives and myths and stories about, relations between the sexes. And I then argue that it's not enough for the men's human rights movement to simply present facts and rational arguments, although, it is vital, but that we also need to popularize our own stories, that are more true, more nuanced, more positive, and hopefully, capable of reaching people.
Okay. Right. So I want to ask Greta about the idea of nature, specifically Mother Nature. So I kind of have some understanding of where you come from. That like nature is chaos and the order masculine, and that kind of. But I take a rather what I think is unique position that nature is more of a, well, I don't know if it's unique on my part, but nature is more of a collision and result of feminine and masculine forces. So I think they're both present. So is there a masculine element to nature itself?
It depends on which belief system, which ideological and mythological system we're talking about. So it depends on the context of the discussion. But within the context of ancient mythology, which is one of my main interests, the way you would see it is that there's a duality between nature and culture is born out of nature, and that which creates and gives birth needs to have a strong feminine component to it. And the idea is that this feminine natural chaos is tamed by masculine forces. And obviously it is a difficult subject to talk about without sounding overly gynocentric. I don't want to make that mistake. But what I find really interesting is looking at prehistoric art. I mean, the entire history of art, but starting with prehistory, what we see is that the majority of the very first pieces of art, figurines and statuettes, were depictions of women. And obviously we don't have written records from those times, but what that tells us, what archaeologists hypothesize, is that they were representations of Mother Nature, mother goddesses that were used in fertility rites, fertility rituals. So what we must keep in mind is that the creative aspect of femininity and reproduction itself was extremely important during those times. It was also extremely mysterious. And one of my favorite pieces of evidence for this is the parallel between the moon cycle and the menstrual cycle. And it's just so fascinating because no one really understands why there's that exact overlap, why both last 28 days, because other mammals don't have that. It's very far from being a universal in the animal kingdom, but there's something about human females. We just seem to be in tune with the moon, which is a very, very tiny part of nature. But if you think back to prehistoric times, the moon was actually a very important source of light for them. The main source of light on the night sky, and it did play an important part. It helped people with navigation. It kind of, and they obviously personified these natural forces like the moon and the sun, and they always associated the moon with femininity, and that could be the whole origin of this idea. Obviously, that's just my theory, but it kind of makes sense. And even to this day, we don't really understand whether this is a coincidence or not. I mean, scientists, if you look it up, scientists are very divided over this.
I see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because even then, I still having taken all that in consideration. I'm not saying that there's no appreciable amount of femininity in nature, but assuming that masculinity is more of that kind of ordered and aim-oriented aspect, you can see a lot of that too. And this is kind of weird, but I was contemplating the aloe plant at some point. I just think it's a very interesting structure that it kind of just it's natural, but it's so systematic, and any given kind of blade of grass is just like there's a structure imposed in nature that's not by us humans. I'm not a creationist or anything like that, but I just think that's really fascinating how these standards get applied to nature. So this is why I think it's more of an interplay of two elements, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. It is like the yin and yang, I guess. So each constituent part has an element of the other. And it's the eternal dance of these forces that kind of makes up the whole of the universe, if you want to get really spiritual about it. So definitely, whatever religion you believe in or don't believe in, however you conceptualize the origins of the universe, it is necessary for there to have been a masculine force too at the very beginning, because it just cannot arise out of nothing, So I don't want to sound like I'm arguing that femininity necessarily predates masculinity and one is therefore comes first and is therefore might be superior. It's not like that, but different aspects of these forces are manifest across different experiences and different natural phenomena. So in a very symbolic way, and these symbols like order and chaos can sound quite contrived and arbitrary, and I don't want to sound very dogmatic about them. It just appeals to me, this duality really appeals to me on a psychological level, and it might not work for everyone, but it works for me.
Right, yeah, because I mean, it's interesting to contemplate, like you mentioned yin and yang. It's like one has the element of the other almost. So like when it comes to order, like even femininity has some kind of vestige of that. I think of like homemakers, wives that are stay-at-home mothers and stuff like that. They tend to have like a sense of order about the house. So that's kind of the feminine version of order. That's something I've contemplated once.
Yeah, and conversely, there are in the old kind of paganistic religions depictions of masculine natural figures, Father Earth and Green Man, and in the UK we would dance around maypoles which represented the penis. It's like there is a kind of there's a strong and significant element of masculinity in the chaos of nature, and I think it's sad that we've kind of lost that. We still have some vestige of the female kind of natural, fertile, almost divine kind of archetype, although feminists are doing their darndest to destroy it, but we've kind of lost the male equivalent. But it's women create, they grow and give birth to them. So that's kind of obviously why the kind of archetype is so strong, and why very often in the old paganistic religions, it will be a goddess of the fields, and stuff like that, because things that grow and feed us and nurture us, we associate with women.
Right. Yeah.
Instinctively.
Right. Yeah. I guess sometimes I get a feeling from some people that like man and malehood is the contrast to the nature that is female. So I just don't like the fact that men are not natural.
Yeah. And I do think that kind of duality can be overstated, but I think on the other hand, if you're looking at masculinity and femininity, you have to accept that we all contain elements of both of those kind of things to different degrees. So any given man has elements of femininity, of chaos, of nature, and any given woman, like you say, the homemaker has, a masculine energy where she is, keeping order and all of that, to varying degrees.
So Greta, you talk a lot about the allure of femininity towards men, and how sometimes, well, not sometimes, like a lot of the times, it tends to kind of drive men a bit crazy, right? So I'm actually kind of want to flip that a bit and kind of get your opinion on something else. What is it about people like Elvis Presley and Liz that drive women crazy?
It's status. So, as Marilyn Monroe said in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, a man being rich is like a girl being pretty. You wouldn't marry a girl just because she's pretty, but my goodness, doesn't it help? So women are naturally attracted to status. Men are drawn to beauty. And that's interesting there, because you don't... Hollywood stars like Scarlett Johansson don't have groupies. They don't have young men screaming by the red carpet when they're walking on the red carpet. And that doesn't mean men don't find her attractive, but the difference is that a man likes Scarlett Johansson because she's pretty, not because of her status. Whereas women, rock stars have groupies, and women love following male film stars too, because they represent the man who's at the top, basically,
right,
who has climbed the dominance hierarchy, and within that playing field, he has conquered all difficulties, he has overcome himself, his limitations, and he has made it. And I guess that just sums up the essence of masculinity that's attractive to women. And that can definitely mesmerize a woman and drive a woman crazy. There's just that magnetic sort of attraction there.
Yeah, I think that Elvis's beauty helped, though. He is a very classically handsome man, and that helped him to achieve his status in the first place. That and his talent kind of helped him to climb that dominance hierarchy. And then when he was at the top, he was invincible and iconic and, everlasting.
Yeah. So there are examples like that when it's almost like a person emerges who just embodies that archetype of the perfect man. And it doesn't happen that often, but I guess Elvis was an example, and then James Bond is another example they often use. But then there are stars like, I don't know, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards. I wouldn't say they have ever been extremely handsome, but women love them. Jimmy Page, I guess one could argue he was attractive when he was younger.
Mhm.
But there are examples of men who just have an incredible charisma. And a lot of the time, those men don't even have to be famous, but that's the counterpart of magnetic femininity, I guess. So you have the feminine woman who is just so attractive to both men and women in different ways. And then you have the masculine man with an incredibly powerful charisma who people just want to follow. And they just hang on to every one of his words. And he can manifest as a politician, as a political leader, as an actor, as a CEO. It is like an archetypal figure.
Yeah. So I get this one a lot. Men, of course, like beautiful women. That's a bit obvious, and women seem to like beautiful women. So, what is beautiful women to other women?
I mean, for me, a beautiful woman, she is an epitome of the the beauty in nature. And I absolutely adore the natural world, and it's really important to me that where I live, there's a lot of greenery and there are trees, and I can watch the seasons pass, and when it's windy, all the leaves blowing about, and little animals and all this kind of stuff. And the beautiful woman is like one of the most awe-inspiring, kind of majestic, lovely things to see for me. Like a pretty view. And also I think, something that I really like about feminine beauty is its ephemeral nature, like a flower, like it lasts for so long, and then, it starts to decay, and it can decay in a beautiful way too. I mean, in Japan, you have this idea of kind of the beauty in things decaying, right?
Somewhat, yeah.
Something like that. And yeah, so that happens, but every photograph of a beautiful woman is like a moment captured, this divine kind of spiritual, beautiful moment captured that will never be seen again. So yeah,
it's almost like it's a representation of life itself, the great mother and fertility. And it's definitely the transience of feminine beauty that makes it so magical and mysterious and tragic at the same time.
Yeah. I think though that there are too few women who can or who allow themselves maybe to genuinely delight in the beauty of other women. I think that too many women get kind of defensive and jealous, and that's really sad. It really irritates me and kind of disturbs me, because it feels like they're missing out on so much joy and pleasure by just being completely like self-obsessed.
Yeah, it's the Hera-Aphrodite dynamic.
Yes, exactly.
For people who are familiar with Greek mythology, obviously Hera women have this immense amount of jealousy born out of misunderstanding towards women who embody Aphrodite, because Aphrodite didn't treat her beauty and sexuality as commodity.
No.
She expressed her true nature because it was within her, and that's what made her feel good.
It was fun and joyful.
Yeah.
Whereas the Hera, it's a tool, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a means to an end.
Yeah.
Sure, right. Peter Wright told me the exact same thing when I showed him.
Me too.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter.
Right. When I showed him an essay about something that Ayn Rand wrote like 2 weeks after the death of Marilyn Monroe. I showed him an essay that she wrote, and the essay talked a lot about how people were just jealous of her joyful, almost innocent sort of life outlook and like sexuality, like you know, like her presentation of herself in her movies. And Peter said that that's like a whole mass of people playing the part of Hera, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So, right. So, is there kind of, so you mentioned status before, like for someone like Elvis. So, is there a kind of an equivalent for beauty for men, or is it really just the kind of status? Is there something that women appreciate kind of in a more like for being man kind of a way instead of a more useful they are kind of a way?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I've come across lots of evolutionary psychology studies which show that when you show women images of men, they always rate the ones with more masculine features as more attractive.
Mm.
I just have a problem of conceptualizing masculinity as a form of beauty, and I understand, you know, looking at the statue of David, it is a beautiful figure, but to me it's still not equivalent to a beautiful statue of a woman. You know, a naked man. I've spoken to Eccentric Hat about this.
Yeah, I saw that.
A naked man, as stunningly perfect as he may be, just doesn't excite a woman the same way a beautiful female body excites a man, because a naked man is not doing anything, you know, that's extremely interesting to women.
Well, I've come to kind of define femininity almost as the invitational, like anything that invites is feminine. So I think, you know, women are very, of course, kind of almost, well, they are naturals at this, right? And men are the ones that want to go attain it for themselves. You know, they're very, you know, desire oriented in that way. So I think that dynamic kind of makes sense. And I think when women appreciate other women, it's more of a resonant kind of a thing. Would you agree?
I think I'm just wondering whether part of the beauty in women and the reason that it is kind of special is the mystery of women, like, you know, and maybe that's, you know, the fact that in prehistory, you know, women just suddenly got pregnant and then babies came out of them, and how mysterious is that? And, you know, the mystery of, like, you know, our genitals being on the inside. And it's like, you know, for a man, when he wants to approach a woman, he has no idea what, you know, whether it's kind of what she wants. There's a mystery there, because there are our signals are subtle, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if a man's interested, it's quite obvious.
Yeah. So it's in the great apes. It's very obvious when the women are in heat, when the females are in heat.
Yeah,
you know, their genitals engorge.
Yeah.
It's just extremely obvious. Women conceal their most fertile part of their cycle, and there's just a total game changer. No one really knows why it evolved that way. But again, it gives women a certain level of power over men, because men just don't know what exactly the woman is fertile. That's why courtship has evolved the way it has, and it's important for a man to hold on to that woman, so he's the only one who gets to have sex with her. Otherwise, it might not be his offspring. So
right. Yeah, I mean, I think men's pursuit of women is to kind of attempt to fulfill that, to answer that question of mystery. It's like if you'll excuse me, the female body is kind of almost designed to keep secrets, you know, kind of carry and right. So
And then we paint our faces so that you can't even like get a clue whether our lips are kind of reddening, naturally, whether our cheeks are reddening. We do everything we can to maintain, we have a mask, we wear masks.
Right. Yeah. The reason I brought up the question about whether men can be desired by women in a similar way is because, well, the first time I thought of it was there was this thing circulating around online about pinups of male Marvel superheroes. Greta, have you seen that one at all?
I haven't. I wonder how popular they are.
Well, I looked at it, and basically they were kind of posed in very feminine ways, right? They were art, like drawn, and like someone like.
Is it a feminist project?
No, I don't think so. If it was, I wouldn't know. But like, they were kind of like Aquaman being kind of taking a very feminine pose, and.
But that's the sort of thing that would appeal to some gay men, I think, but not to most women, and to some women, but not to most women.
Well, and it was like what might have been either Iron Man or Captain America. I don't remember. Kind of bent over on like a car washing it or something like that, right? And the point I was trying to make about that is that I looked at it and I said this had to have been done by a gay man, and I think it was. I think I later found out that it was. So, like, what gay men want out of men and what straight women want out of men seem to be kind of different.
And it's kind of interesting that when a ham party goes to a male strip club, women laugh at Chip and Dale guys. That's where you see that they're out having fun, slapping their bum, but they find it amusing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to a strip club with female strippers, you don't see any guys laughing.
No, that's so true.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not the strip club kind of guy because I'm not. I don't like the public experience that much.
Yeah,
I heard this all by a friend, by the way. I'm not speaking on personal experience, obviously.
Of course not.
No, I have a lot of love for strippers, though.
Yeah, me too. And respect and admiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes an enormous amount of courage if you think about it.
It does take an enormous amount of courage, and I absolutely despise these kind of sex negative feminists who criticize strippers and tell strippers that they're exploited. It's like it's a voluntary transaction for a start, and I can't help but feel that when a woman is presenting herself and men are paying to look at her, if anyone's being exploited, and I don't think exploited's a useful word in the situation, I think it's negative and has connotations that are just inappropriate. But if anyone's being exploited, it's like these men, they're in this, she's in the position of power, she's controlling everything,
Yeah, and look at the popularity of OnlyFans. I'm sure some guys have tried starting an OnlyFans, but
it just doesn't work that way. But I suppose I like that kind of that balance of don't stray to the Puritan side of denying all sex, but then when it gets too public and too mainstream, the mystique kind of wears off. Yeah, and I think OnlyFans has a serious problem with that because it is my understanding that most of it's just no one's doing anything new, I think, and but men still go for that kind of thing apparently. So I'm actually wondering what the state of affairs is for men. It feels like they're okay with being almost condescended upon, and maybe they should start being more discerning about the kind of marketplace of feminine and sexual, I suppose, gratification. I'm probably.
I think that the vast majority of people lack discernment and, you know, aesthetic kind of sophistication. You know, it's like I often will, you know, I've got friends who are seriously great artists in various ways, making, you know, little or no money from it, and then you see the stuff that's popular and you're like, that's ugly, you know.
Yeah.
So,
It's like,
yeah.
it's why I'm not big into elaborate lingerie. Like this is like it's designed for show, you know? Or yeah, like I like things that are, you know, not meant to be seen almost. Yeah, so I kind of like that balance of, you know, the fun of chasing after what, you know, is not there for the world to see, but, you know, only he gets to have. So and I think there needs to be kind of a realization that that's what sex can be, instead of just normalizing and playing exhibitionism of
100%. Yeah, I believe in the power of teasing. I love burlesque. And with a burlesque performance, they always keep their most intimate bits covered at the end. Once everything comes off, you know, their nipples are still covered. They're still wearing tiny panties and things like that.
Yeah.
But then,
yeah, I find that much sexier than, you know, who are those women who slip around in their own juices and that modern pop song?
Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah. The burlesque is so much more, you know, impacting than like that. It's just, you know, that's gross, in my opinion. But yeah, people seem to like it, and each to their own, I guess.
Well, like I think a lot of it has to do with desperation on the part of men. I think it's like so much of it is so out there that the mystery is so starved that they'll take almost anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I suppose there's just, what's the word? We just seem to be kind of starved of real quality kind of
magnetism,
like I don't know, kind of values and sensibilities and, you know, art and
taste.
Yeah, and I don't exactly know where it's come from, but it's very sad to see, because, you know, there are centuries of just the most incredible masterpieces and, you know, refinement, and now there's just a scarcity of any of that.
Yeah, I think it's a symptom of a fading, collapsing civilization. It's just another manifestation of nihilism.
Yeah.
That art is not supposed to mean anything anymore. You're free to interpret anything the way you want. Nothing has an inherent meaning. There's nothing to believe in.
Yeah.
No values to hold dear, nothing to fight for, you know.
Right, yeah. Right. I think that's all my questions for now. Wish I'd prepared some more, but maybe some other time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a really good discussion, I think, actually.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I suppose I can think of one last question. So after this, what are your immediate plans aside from the ICMI appearance?
Lamb chops and couscous.
Sounds good to me.
That does sound good. All right, well.
I'm still working on building up my YouTube channel. I'm quite serious about it. I only started it like less than 6 months ago, actually. Yeah. So I'm still quite new to it, but I enjoy it. I love making videos. I love engaging with my audience. I'm also more focused on Twitter now.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess I'm looking forward to talking to more people, learning about different perspectives, points of view, doing lots of interviews, and making some of my own content too.
Okay. One more question. Do you have any more musical plans, Greta?
There's an EP I recorded with some great musicians last year, actually, that's been ready to be released for a while. So that should come out either later this year or early next year.
Ooh.
Okay. Sounds good.
Watch this space.
It's gonna be titled Dying Venus.
Oh.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, not that Venus is dying, but
Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah. Well, thank you too for being on my interview here, and I hope I'll talk to both of you again, hopefully soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
Thanks for
having
having
us.
us. Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.